This is the CBS Evening News with Roger Mudd substituting for Walter Cronkite. And tonight, the first of a two-part report on financial scandals in the trade schools.
Good evening. The Israeli government, preparing for Secretary of State Kissinger's arrival later this week, was busy today trying to sell its parliament an interim Sinai agreement with Egypt. We have reports from Tel Aviv and Cairo.
Prime Minister Rabin beat back parliamentary attempts to condemn his government for giving away too much for too little. He assured members of the Israeli Knesset that Israel's security will not be undermined by the proposed agreement with Egypt. It was a stormy, unruly session, and Rabin was frequently interrupted by shouts from the opposition. Menachem Begin, leader of the right-wing opposition, called on Rabin to resign for breaking his promise not to give away the Sinai mountain passes or oil fields without a formal pledge of non-belligerency from Egypt. Begin had called for the debate in an effort to embarrass the government, but he was unable to win majority backing for his viewpoint. While the debate was going on, there were demonstrations outside the Knesset and in Tel Aviv by groups who fear that Israel has been pressured into making unacceptable concessions. The demonstrators promised more vigorous protests when Kissinger arrives here Thursday. Despite all the reservations being expressed here about Kissinger's new mission, government insiders insist that the deal is essentially complete and express confidence that the Kissinger shuttle this time will succeed in bringing about a new agreement between Israel and Egypt. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
No public debate here in Egypt to compare with the discussion in Israel over the shape of a new interim peace agreement. The Egyptian people have not been told much about the negotiations. Newspapers here have printed no maps and given no details of where the new ceasefire line might be. Significantly, the Egyptian people have been told by their government that a new agreement would include return of the Abu Rodais oil fields, but not that the Israelis will continue to hold one end of the strategic Gideon-Mitla passes. One point repeatedly hammered home in the controlled press of Egypt is that Washington holds all the cards in the negotiations, so if the Egyptians are unhappy with the agreement when they find out the details, they can blame it on the Americans rather than on their own government. John Sheehan, CBS News, Cairo.
The biggest obstacle Secretary Kissinger is expected to face in getting an agreement is the presence of American technicians in the Sinai. More on this from Marvin Kalb in Washington.
After initial soundings on Capitol Hill, Secretary Kissinger has concluded that Congress will support the stationing of about 100 American technicians in the Sinai as part of a new Egyptian-Israeli agreement. Top officials now seem fairly confident that so long as the Americans serve only the technical function of monitoring the early warning systems in the strategic passes, Congress will support this limited peacekeeping role. The administration, mindful of the Vietnam experience, wants this support, because if anything goes wrong, if somehow Americans become involved in hostilities, the president wants congressional backing from the very beginning. Officials insist it is still a very tricky negotiation, but they think Kissinger will get the agreement by the end of this month. They say 90% has already been completed. The Israelis claim only 60%. The Egyptians don't claim anything but admit a few major problems remain. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, the State Department.
Jordan's King Hussein today began 5 days of meetings in Damascus with Syrian President Assad. The two Arab leaders are moving closer together politically as Israel and Egypt approach agreement in the Sinai. The chief subjects of the Damascus talks are expected to be Kissinger's peace efforts and what to do about tens of thousands of Palestinian refugees in Jordan and in Syria. Violent anti-communist demonstrations spread today to Portugal's strategic Azores Islands. Farmers protesting Portugal's leftist policies attacked and burned the local communist headquarters. There were no reported injuries. Meanwhile, pro-communist Premier Vasco Gonçalves, trying to hold on to his power, made his first public appearance in almost 2 months today. He addressed a rally at a communist industrial stronghold near Lisbon. In the city of Lisbon, there was a newspaper report today that Gonçalves may be ousted soon. There was also growing political unrest in Spain. Several hundred angry rightists shouted anti-government slogans at officials today who were attending a Madrid funeral for a policeman who was killed by left-wing terrorists. Police stepped in and forced the demonstrators back.
A toast to Cookie, who says the customer is always right, whose recipes never falter, who's known as the Shakespeare of chefdom. Cookie, I have a warm feeling for your meatloaf. It's called heartburn. So I drink to you, pal, with Alka-Seltzer Gold.
New Alka-Seltzer Gold starts to work as fast as you drink it to neutralize excess acid.
Hey, when you get heartburn or acid indigestion, give it the toast of the town.
This is the end of Denture Cream. Because now there's a new kind of Denture Cream. A Denture Cream that doesn't just get rid of the dingy yellow film that builds up on dentures. This Denture Cream has a new anti-yellowing formula. A new anti-yellowing formula that polishes better. Better than ever to help keep that yellow from coming back. Announcing new Denture Cream with a new anti-yellowing formula.
President Ford has interrupted his vacation for 2 days of travel, and most of that will be political. He began his 4-state Midwestern tour today by inspecting an oil experiment in Colorado and talking to farmers in Iowa. Phil Jones reports.
The president flew to Colorado's western slope to show his interest in the development of oil shale as an energy source. This is only a research and development project, but the president was told today that the oil shale potential boggles the mind. There are estimates that up to 3 trillion barrels of oil are locked in Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming shale. There are others who say that the American oil shale is 2 to 4 times the known oil reserves in the Mideast. But one problem is that it would be 1980 before a commercial plant could be in operation. Today, about 3 hours after the visit to the oil shale plant, the president was doing some politicking and business in the Midwest. Mr. Ford, only the second president to ever visit the Iowa State Fair. Eisenhower was here in 1954. The president's love for fairs goes back to his first congressional campaign in '48, and even back to the days when he was a 4-H'er. Today, he inspected the 4-H exhibit and was right at home. Later, with the grandstand packed with farmers who are interested in more grain sales to Russia, President Ford defended the temporary halt in sales to the Soviet Union.
Additional sales to the Soviet Union must be in our best national interest, in the interest of all Americans, farmers, and consumers alike. We must be sure that we have enough grain to meet our needs and the needs of our traditional customers who have consistently bought from us throughout the past several decades.
The president will conclude his Iowa visit tonight by attending a fundraising reception and dinner. Hopefully, he'll be able to get the Iowa State Republican Party out of debt and at the same time pick up a few IOUs for next year's presidential race. Phil Jones, CBS News, with the president in Des Moines.
The White House Press Secretary Ron Nessen said the Republican National Committee is paying for the president's trip except for the Colorado stop, which was described as official. In Washington, AFL-CIO President George Meany today gave his support to dock workers who refused to load grain recently bought by the Soviet Union. Maritime union leaders want administration guarantees that the new sales will not hurt the American consumer. Ed Bradley reports.
The leaders of the nation's major maritime unions, except those on the West Coast, met with Meany and reaffirmed their earlier decision to refuse to load or ship any grain bought last month by Russia. Meany recalled the 1972 grain deal and subsequent increase in prices.
This was a real rip-off, and who paid for it? The American consumer paid for it. And our policy is to try to do something to stop that.
The 81-year-old union leader made it clear they plan to stick by the boycott and will not go to the administration for a deal.
No, we're not asking for anything. Not asking for a thing.
So they're going to have to come to you?
You bet your life they're going to have to come to us. And with Dr. Kissinger at the head of the parade, we'd be delighted to talk to him. We'd be delighted to talk to him on an economic subject because he don't know anything about economics and we'd have an advantage.
Meany took exception to the suggestion that the unions could be accused of interference with delicate foreign policy.
That's a laugh. That's a laugh. Foreign policy is too damn important to be left to the Secretary of State. The American people should have a voice in every phase of foreign policy. and it shouldn't be conducted behind closed doors and kept secret from the American people.
Meany said wheat has already gone up 36% since the Russian deal, and détente is going to cost the American consumer billions of dollars. Ed Bradley, CBS News, Washington.
Figures out today show the number of new homes started last month rose 13.7%, and building permits increased 6%. Economists said the sharp rise in housing starts indicates the industry will be gradually reviving the rest of this year. The Federal Home Loan Bank Board said today a survey of 5 cities shows that blacks applying for mortgage loans are rejected more than twice as often as whites. The cities were Chicago, Washington, Buffalo, San Antonio, and San Diego. This is the third government study in recent months pointing to discrimination in the home loan industry. It was a slow day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost more than 2 3/4 points. Volume on the New York Stock Exchange was 10,800,000 shares. The average price per share fell 5 cents on the New York Exchange. It was unchanged on the American.
If I told you Excedrin worked better than regular aspirin, you might not buy it. But would you listen if there was medical evidence? Well, in 2 medical research studies on pain other than headache, at a large hospital and a leading university, doctors reported that Excedrin worked significantly better than the regular aspirin tablet. Right. Doctors reported Excedrin has worked better than aspirin. So the next time you get a headache, try Excedrin, the extra strength pain reliever. See if it doesn't work better for you.
Remember the old days when every home had a plunger? It was a good idea, using pressure to push out the clog. Only trouble was it didn't work very fast. But today there's new Drano aerosol plunger. It works with pressure the way a plunger works, only much faster and much better. It contains no lye or acid, and its pressure-concentrated formula unclogs instantly. Watch. New Drano aerosol plunger plunges away clogs instantly.
6 former mental patients today told a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee they had become zombies after being given large doses of drugs in mental hospitals. Mariah McLaughlin reports from Washington.
The committee heard witness after witness, all formerly inmates of mental institutions, describe the side effects of drugs they received. Not drugs that would help cure them, they were later to find out, but merely drugs to keep them in line.
It would take very strong, the strongest among us, to withstand the sense that we're going crazy. Can't communicate, you don't hear what people are saying, you can't read, you fall asleep in the middle of a conversation, without knowing that these were caused by the drugs that were supposed to be helping me.
It's very hard to describe the effect of this drug and others like it. That's why we use strange words like zombie. But in my case, the experience became sheer torture. Different muscles began twitching uncontrollably. My mouth was like very dry cotton, no matter how much water I drank.
I began to take a daily midday nap. Despite the fact that this drowsiness was a drug side effect, I was forbidden to take naps by the hospital personnel. Later, the fact that I took naps rather than remaining in the day room was cited as an example of my uncooperative behavior.
After the patients came doctors who confirmed the stories of indiscriminate use of drugs in mental institutions.
The untrained ward attendant will go to the doctor and say, Johnny did such and such, he needs a pill. And Johnny gets a pill. How does the doctor get information back about how the pill is affecting Johnny? The untrained ward attendant says, Johnny's better now that he's gotten the pill. That's about as scientific as it ever gets.
My feeling about it was that it was very much like the way wild animals are captured in the jungle, and that it was not at any level higher than that. With the doctor's order over the phone and with the nurse's permission, essentially the guards were shooting a Thorazine gun at these unfortunate people to control their violent behavior, which they had indeed done a great deal to provoke.
The doctors who testified said the use of drugs without any therapy was inexcusable, and the use of drugs just to make life easier for guards and hospital personnel was almost criminal. Mariah McLaughlin, CBS News, Washington.
The U.S. Customs Service said today one of its helicopters spotted a 40-ton pile of marijuana in the Grand Bahama Islands, stacked in a pile the size of a railroad freight car. The estimated value of the marijuana is $22 million. Officials say it may have been the biggest marijuana seizure so far.
You know, America's looking for a lot of good, sound values these days. And as always, one of the best is going Greyhound.
Greyhound in touch with America, with the people and the places that make this country strong. Greyhound in touch with America. Take a little time to ride along.
George, am I glad you're behind the counter? I've got this problem. It's my breath. You see, I could use a...
Breath deodorant.
Deodorant. Very funny, but...
Yes, a breath deodorant.
Clorettes?
Clorettes is strong. It deodorizes mouth odors. Clorettes with Actazol actually helps your mouth's own freshening power eliminate bad breath. It costs a little more.
Hey, but for a deodorant, it's worth it.
Clorettes, the breath deodorant.
As part of its higher education program, the federal government spends millions of dollars to underwrite loans for trade school tuition. But many students who are supposed to be getting help end up getting hurt, and the taxpayer picks up the bill. Sharon Lovejoy has part one of a special report.
This is the way dreams are sold, and the hope of training and a good job and a steady income. The key to it all, a government-backed student loan available to almost anyone. The Guaranteed Student Loan Program is one of 5 HEW loan and grant programs for students enrolled in accredited colleges and vocational schools, known as proprietary schools. The student enrolls in a trade school and applies for a federally insured loan from a bank. Loans range up to $2,500 a year at 7% interest. Students have upwards of 15 months to start repaying the loan after completing school or dropping out. The bank gets an additional 3% interest from Uncle Sam to sweeten the deal, plus a guarantee that the government will step in and pick up the tab if the student defaults. So everybody's happy. The bank has a solvent Uncle Sam as an angel for its money. The school has its tuition money up front, and the student has some terrific promises, all within the law.
McMahon College is a tough school, but for those who do graduate, the rewards are high. Anywhere from $10,000 to over $30,000 a year.
But the surefire plan for success all too often ends in failure. In this case, would-be court reporters found that in spite of its excellent reputation, McMahon College folded in bankruptcy. Few students ever acquired the necessary proficiency from their courses, so they kept re-enrolling, running up tuition loans as high as $7,000. The washout rate shot up to 95%. Angry, disillusioned, students refused to pay for the courses they couldn't finish. Since the government guaranteed the loans, the taxpayer was left with the bill. Again, all within the law. Since the loan program's inception a decade ago, nearly 5 million students have taken advantage of the offer. But as enrollments grew, so did the default rate, up to 14% nationally. Also on the rise, the taxpayer's debt. Over $400 million since 1968, already projected as an estimated $200 million next year. 60% of the defaults are in the proprietary schools. But while the taxpayer was losing money, the banks and the schools were raking it in. Paris Strawn's business school was the last in the chain of 14 schools run by a complex interlocking corporation system throughout Texas. Controlling it all, Carl Whaling, a man who lives well in a comfortable suburb of San Antonio. A shrewd businessman, his worth, say some observers, in the heyday of his empire, somewhere between $6 and $14 million. Carl Whaling made a lot of money after the HEW program began, but he refused to talk with CBS News either about student loans or the schools which made him so rich. Whaling's salesmen zeroed in on the hot, dusty fields of Texas. A favorite target, the lush Rio Grande Valley, one of the nation's agricultural garden spots, manned by men and women eager for an opportunity to better themselves. Over a 4-year period, Whaling's salesmen recruited some 6,000 students, most of them from this valley. Ripe pickings, for they were often desperate for a chance for a better job, but too often confused by the wordy contracts peddled by Whaling's hard-driving salesmen.
I needed money. I had to work. I had 2 children.
He just made it so easy. You just signed that dotted line.
He said, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to give a penny down.
Once signed, the loan applications were pushed through an HEW computer, given almost rubber stamp approval, and then returned to the lending bank. There, the student loans, averaging between $1,000 and $1,500, were usually forwarded to the schools, not the students. Somehow, the checks were cashed without the student ever seeing the check. Tuition was paid in full before a single class had been taken. McAllen Business School, at one time part of the Whaling Empire. Students here found there were seldom current textbooks, that business machines were outdated or broken, that bogus entrance exams and fraudulent promises were the order of the day. They described the more blatant examples of fraud to producer Roger Sims.
We were guaranteed a job after we graduated. Guaranteed. Now, he said, we'll place you anywhere in the state.
We were led to believe I was. When I enrolled, they stated that it was accredited. Before the school closed down, that's when I found out that it wasn't accredited.
Had not been even when you
It
entered?
had lost its accreditation a few years ago.
Before you entered?
Before I entered.
There were more serious charges, allegations of whaling schools giving kickbacks to banks. The FBI began digging into the disappearance of almost $2 million in HEW educational grants made to whaling students, grants the students say they never saw. 7 HEW officials fired in Texas accused of making irregular loan approvals to schools run by whaling. The students felt they'd been cheated.
I owe $1,700 to this bank in San Antonio, and I don't feel that I should pay it back. I really don't.
I'm not going to give any money away for free. You know, I want something in return for what I'm going to pay them.
As the whaling empire collapsed, the default rate in Texas soared to the second highest in the nation after California. HEW brought in Charles Cook, special assistant to former Secretary Caspar Weinberger. His job, clean up the mess. Cook admitted HEW had had enough laws to crack down on the wayward school years ago, but explained why the agency didn't act.
The delay was partly one of attitude, the delay was partly one of staffing, and the delay, I would say, in the final instance is partly one of just failure to implement the law all the way, or correctly.
So the complaints roll in about a program designed to help those who need education the most and are the least able to afford it. The unskilled, the uneducated of the inner cities, the hopeless of the farms. Most involved say root causes were stupidity, greed, and inertia, that the vocational and home study industry grew faster than government controls, and that the solution is still 1 to 3 years away. But the real losers are the students, men and women at the bottom of the unemployment ladder, looking to the program for a way out. For them, it turned out to be just another broken dream. Sharon Lovejoy, CBS News, Washington.
The Federal Trade Commission said today it's cracking down on price fixing in the stereo industry. The commission announced that 4 major stereo manufacturers, Pioneer, Sherwood, TIAC, and Sansui, signed a consent order promising not to fix prices. They also agreed not to take retribution against dealers who cut prices.
Sometimes with dentures, you're sure they're going to slip. You think everybody is looking at you. You're afraid to eat. You cover your mouth. But with Orifix, you eat, you smile. You feel more like a human being again.
Orifix holds dentures better. It spreads better than these other top sellers. These don't spread as well. But Orifix spreads to seal gaps and hold dentures tight.
You feel like a human being again.
Orifix, every day, for the seal of confidence.
Hi, I'm Jockey Donna Hillman. I know all about racing links, but I didn't know about mid-links, the racy new cigars from Dutch Masters, featuring the Sprint and the Racer. Tell them, fellas.
A mid-length is smaller than a large Dutch Masters, but larger than a small Dutch Masters. So you get that famous Dutch Masters taste at a 2 for a quarter price.
New Dutch Masters mid-lengths, the Sprint and the Racer. 2 for the money, 2 for a quarter, can't lose.
West German officials say a professional American helicopter rescue pilot flew from Munich to Czechoslovakia yesterday and picked up 3 East German refugees. Czech soldiers fired on the chartered helicopter as it took off, wounding the American, 34-year-old Barry Meeker, and one of the refugees, a 14-year-old girl. The helicopter was hit twice and was forced to land at Traunstein, West Germany. Meeker, who is a civilian, said the refugees were a friend's family. The district attorney of Westchester County, New York, said today state kidnapping charges will be pressed against the 2 men arrested in the FBI's Sunday morning rescue of Samuel Bronfman. The maximum penalty is life imprisonment. The 2 men were in federal court today on an FBI complaint of extortion. Sam Chulin reports.
Melvin Patrick Lynch, 37, a New York City fireman, a bachelor, an immigrant from Ireland. Police found Sam Bronfman in Lynch's Brooklyn apartment. Lynch was dozing on the floor when police and FBI agents broke in yesterday morning. Dominic Byrne, 53, also Irish-American. Active in his parish Catholic church, ran a neighborhood liquor store in Brooklyn until 6 months ago, then started a limousine service. Lynch occasionally drove one of Byrne's limousines, and Byrne gave police the key they used to get into Lynch's apartment. So far, no one has explained how or why the 2 hatched the plot to kidnap Sam Bronfman. Neither is known to have been active in Irish political affairs. Neither was thought to have financial worries. In fact, neighbors and co-workers say the 2 are a most unlikely pair of kidnappers.
Dominic was a good friend, good neighbor. I was flabbergasted when I heard. Never would think it, the last person in the world to think involved in a thing like that.
I really didn't believe it. Out of 50 men in this firehouse, I would say he would be the last one that I would select.
I would never think anything could happen like this with Dominic. He seemed to be such a good person, so religious.
Today, Judge Martin Jacobs set bail at $500,000 for Lynch, $200,000 for Byrne. Both were ordered to surrender their passports. Sam Chulin, CBS News, New York.
That's the news this Monday night. I'm Roger Mudd, CBS News. Good night.
Have you considered comparing whole wheat total with the leading natural cereals? You'll see there's a big difference. 1 ounce of fortified total gives you 100% of the recommended daily allowance of all these important vitamins and iron. 1 ounce of the leading natural cereals gives you no more than 6%. Check the vitamins and iron listed on the side panels. You'll see 100% versus 6%. That's the total difference.
One of these 5 cars is the winner of Road Test Magazine's 1975 Engineering Award. Acclaimed by Popular Mechanics as the best value for 1975. And by Road and Track as the best sedan under $3,500. Now, will that one car please drive forward? The amazing Volkswagen Rabbit. Thank you.
This has been the CBS Evening News, with Roger Mudd substituting for Walter Cronkite. For the latest news early, watch the CBS Morning News. One week from tonight, watch the special 2-hour introduction of Beacon Hill. Due to mature theme, viewer discretion advised. Here on CBS.
WLAC-TV, Nashville.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Clark, and in the news tonight, your electric rates are